Okay, so right here, guys, on the Cedar Island Ranch Facebook wall on December 22nd, 2022. This was after they fired me. This was only a few days after they fired me. Just thought I'd show you guys. Here's the picture of Jorge, the illegal immigrant. He's riding Cinch, by the way. That horse's name is Cinch. Cinch threw me within like 2 to 3 days. He's also thrown Jorge. Nobody's allowed to ride him the entire time that I was there. Jorge tried riding him out on rides sometimes, and even Jorge was like, he's stupid. He's too finicky. Like, he's gonna go to the glue factory. Yeah. They don't make these guys money. They they kind of just get rid of them however they can, if the horses don't make them money. So he was trying to get Cinch to cooperate, and I think eventually left it for, I don't know if they're going to see if Jeremy can get Cinch to cooperate. Cinch is a sweetheart, by the way. He's a sweet horse in the stall, but he's, as far as I've seen, like, Jorge can sometimes get him under control, but every time I went out on rides with Jorge on Cinch would get finicky and, like, scared. So even with Jorge, and Jorge was a more experienced rider than I was, at least I had the guts to give him a try within my first few days. I knew he was still kind of buck wild. I know quite how buck wild he was, but at least I tried it. Still got thrown. Still got up, brushed it off. Tried to fix the fence that I got thrown against, and then proceeded to walk him into the barn and untack him and brush him down and scoop his poop and give him snuggles. But right here, yeah, so here's, oh, no, I don't want to talk to you. Here's Jorge Camacho Rivera, right here. Here's the guy that they placed in charge of the barn for 3 months, roughly 3 months, while Jeremy Edwards, the barn manager, was away on vacation. This guy, Jorge Camacho Rivera, is an illegal immigrant. Per his own word to me, unless he was lying through his teeth, he told me he was an illegal immigrant and he had been snuck over the border by coyotes. He'd paid coyotes in the past many times to sneak him over the border. And he was going to try to get his son over here too. He told me that next time he goes back to Mexico, he's going to try to come back to America with his son, who's like 14 right now. So he's riding Cinch. This must have been taken actually not long. This either must have been taken while I was there. I think maybe while I was there, considering like what the weather kind of looks like in the picture. Because I was there during kind of, the crud weather. And I know they didn't have Cinch for very long either. Before I got there, he was a newer horse. So I'm thinking that this was taken, this picture was taken right around the time that I was working for them. So this is Jorge. He's an illegal immigrant. David Royal Saint Sing had him running his barn on Cedar Island at Cedar Island Ranch while Jeremy Edwards was away on vacation in Oklahoma for roughly 3 months. He had me working there too, but I was not in charge of the barn. I certainly was not in charge of Jorge, and I was certainly not taking riders out on the beach. And even Jorge was not that great. And Jorge, the hardest part with Jorge is, like, it's hard enough to hear people talk out there. It's really hard to try and make out what a dude who speaks, like, fairly good English, but not the best English. Like, even towards the end of the 3 months, was having trouble picking up some of the stuff he was saying. So it's like, it's hard to take instructions from somebody that does not have a firm grasp of the local language. And this is one of those jobs. It's one of those jobs. People's lives are at stake. The well-being of horses is at stake. Most of the time there's probably going to be no issue, but what happens when there's that issue and someone gets seriously injured or killed because he couldn't direct them properly because he didn't speak English well enough? And then, again, I was told that my job was going to be taken by Jorge's nephew, Valenti, who spoke maybe 3 words of English and who looked like he had less experience with a horse than I did. just watching him on getting on a horse and working around a horse. So, but again, they're illegal immigrants, so they're cheap labor that David Royal Saint Singh can utilize, and he can pack them all like sardines into the legal immigrant bunkhouse that's out back behind the post office and the Baby's restaurant. And then he doesn't have American citizen work campers taking up lots in his RV park. Not that it's anyway. With all the bugs. Yeah. So right here, it's right here on their Facebook. They basically posted evidence on their own Facebook wall of an illegal immigrant being hired. So by the way, if he's not an illegal immigrant, track him down, guys. Find him. Jorge Camacho Rivera. This dude, there should be a dude by that name, Jorge Camacho Rivera, with this face. And I have another picture in another video where I lightened the photo up so you can see his face better. Jorge Camacho Rivera, he should be an American citizen somewhere. If David's on the level and he didn't hire an illegal immigrant to run that barn while Jeremy Edwards was away. And then he hired me, an American citizen, to assist Jorge and help tend to the horses in the barn. But I was basically their legal mask, their beard. So if anything legal went wrong, I could get pinned with the blame because I was the only American citizen of adult age. Like Quinn was a kid and he only worked there a bit after school. So it was my job as the American citizen to work in that barn. And if anything went wrong, they're not going to admit to having the illegal immigrant be in charge of the barn. What they would have done, almost certainly, was made the illegal immigrant disappear somewhere, run off somewhere to another resort site or down to Mexico, and then blamed me. Because that's how these disgusting pig millionaires and billionaires do. Not all of them are disgusting pigs, but a lot of them got their money by being disgusting pigs and not giving a shit about the consequences of their actions on others. And living by better to beg forgiveness than ask permission and all that bullshit philosophical nonsense that they tell themselves to feel better about if they even feel even a shred of guilt about taking advantage of others and pushing people down to get ahead. If you're not fast enough to get there on your own without tripping other people up, then you don't deserve it. And you're a piece of trash. Like, just stop the nonsense. So, again, anybody want to find proof that this guy is an American citizen? Because he's not. He was working there while I was there. He was an illegal immigrant, per his own word. David Saint Singh has been breaking the law over and over and over again. Why don't you guys, any riders, any horseback riders who go out to Cedar Island Ranch, why don't you ask Jeremy Edwards, Cowboy Jeremy, who I guess now is taking back over running those rides? Why don't you ask him where Jorge is? Can you guys do me a favor? Ask Jeremy where Jorge is. Where's Jorge? Let's get in touch with him. Let's find out. Hey, Jorge, did David know you were an illegal immigrant when he hired you? Hey, Jorge, do you have a Mexican boss that's like taking most of your wages because you're paying off a debt with your labor? Hey, Jorge, was Kat ever really meant to have that job long term, or was it always doomed to be roughly a 3-month position? Hey, Jorge, where's Jorge? Let's play Where's Waldo, only where's Jorge? Is he back in Mexico? Is he hiding out somewhere in the States? Are they using him at the High Point location? Is he working at one of David Royal Saint Singh's construction sites? I think it's called Royal Construction or something like that. Yeah. They posted the evidence right on their own freaking wall. Celeste Gothorpe. Can we still bring our own horses to camp and ride? When I was there, I was told that wasn't allowable. And in fact, I've got evidence, screenshot evidence from Slack conversations, forums from last year, saying where one of the employees asked, "Hey, can they bring their own horses?" And The answer from one of the owners was nope. So I guess they're changing their rules to make it tastier for vacation goers. Hey, riders, vacationers, don't stay here. Don't stay here. Go to Ocracoke, go to Hatteras. I can't really vouch for any of the places there either. I've never been and worked to those places. But all I'm saying is this place is rotten. Rotten. They do not respect human beings. They just don't. David Rothstein violated human rights. I was told by Jorge Rivera that David would violate his human rights and demand to see his phone and look at his communications. He violated my human rights. He spied on me. He committed acts of espionage against an American citizen. He spied on my private communications with a coworker / friend, or someone I thought was my friend at the time, someone I thought I could trust, who wanted to get my job for his nephew. And David spied on me on my private communications and used stuff that I said in my private communications as a reason to fire me. Used stuff that I said about the issues I had with the job. First of all, it's none of your fucking business until I bring the issue to you. What I say in the privacy of my phone text conversations to a coworker who I thought was my friend because he was acting like he was my friend. What I say in those private conversations is none of your business. And you certainly don't get to use it as a reason to fire me from my job. So, just so you guys know, that's what you're dealing with if you are giving these people your money. And again, they neglected those horses and they neglected the barn a lot that they kept the horses in. Cheap. David Saintsing is cheap, and he's proud to be so. He told me as much to my face. So that translates into he neglects his responsibilities wherever he feels he can get away with it. There's going to be inspectors for the motel, so they're concerned with making sure the motel is up to standard. Are there barn inspectors? Are there horse inspectors? Can we get in touch with those people? Are there people like that who come out and inspect places and make sure that it's a livable situation for the animals? And that the animals aren't being abused and neglected? I think that's not as probably barn situations and horse situations probably aren't as regulated as motel sanitation situations. And so that's where David chose to primarily focus his time and money, it looked like while I was there on the ranch, and on advertising and on redoing little flourishes, redoing the signs, putting up nice new printed signs, nice new painted everything and all that. They renumbered and redid the numbering of the RV lots while I was there. And put up nice new RV lot numbers that were fresh painted. But meanwhile, Shania, one of the horses, still for weeks on end, still had an open gash on her ankle that was not healing up. Meanwhile, the barn is falling apart. There's rat holes all over. It's snake and rat infested. There's holes in the walls with wires coming out that the horses were chewing on. All this shit that I pointed out to Jeremy a lot of it. I pointed out to Jorge tons of it. And was repeatedly told not to tell David not to bring it up with David because David's cheap and I get fired. So, yeah. So he really cuts corners when it comes to the well-being of these animals, of these horses. By the way, again, Cinch is a sweetheart. He would follow me around his stall and give me little nibbles and nudges. He's just he's not great to ride. At least when I was on him, he wasn't great to ride. I don't know if they were hoping Jeremy could get him in line when Jeremy got back from his vacation, or if they're just planning to send him off to the glue factory. But all I know is even Jorge eventually really stopped riding him. Jorge was even had given up on him. And he spent weeks without really being ridden at all. So still, he's a sweetheart. He's a teenager, basically, he's like a 6-year-old horse. And he's gorgeous. And it's just a shame. And that they really don't see anything that's having a living experience as being more important than their money. It's disgusting. Why you'd ever give these people your money, why you'd ever go work for them, is unless you are an evil villain, is beyond me. Please stop giving them your money. Stop making them more powerful and more able to do this. If you think he's going to put that extra money into the well-being of the horses, no. He's going to put it right into his pocket. And he's going to just keep getting away with whatever he feels he can get away with, cutting corners wherever he feels he can get away with cutting corners, all around his businesses. And he made it clear to me, David Royal Sainsing made it clear to me with my observations during the time I was working for him, that he feels it's appropriate to cut corners when it comes to the well-being of living creatures that are his responsibility. Why you would ever support that by giving them your money? There's lots of other places you can go pay to ride a horse on trails and on the beach. All right? Lots of places I saw in the Outer Banks, beautiful beaches all over, and people with horses. I bet you if you walked up to a few places that you saw with horses and offered them some money, hey, can I go for a horseback ride on your horse? Are they tame enough? By the way, there's not going to be an issue of legalities, because they make you sign a waiver at Cedar Island Ranch before you get on a horse there. They make you sign a waiver that means that they don't have any responsibility for anything that happens to you on that horse. All right? A decent person will, they'll not put you on a horse that, whether you sign a waiver or not, they're not going to put you on a horse that they think is not going to be able to handle you, or you won't be able to handle it. These people, they don't care. So long as you sign the waiver, they do not give a shit. They won't put you on one that's really, really, really obviously bad. Cinch would have just probably thrown almost anybody. If you throw Jorge, you'll throw just about anybody. But they'll put you on Shania with the wounded ankle, who does not like to be kicked. So she's a great horse, even to ride, unless you kick her. If you kick her, she'll start bucking. And people don't pay attention. People don't listen. They want to do as they damn well please. I met too many riders going out there just kind of wanting to do their own thing. It's please listen to us when we tell you not to do certain things with a horse, because some horses just have certain hang-ups, all right? So, but maybe, I don't know, maybe that horse just should have gone back to being a privately owned horse, rather than being used for all different kinds of people for that kind of a job. She was a privately owned horse before she was brought there. She needed to go back to being a privately owned horse. She's a sweet horse. She's a beautiful, sweet, sweet horse. And she's great for riding, just if you know her, the things about her that are finicky, which is don't kick her on the sides. Don't kick her. She doesn't like it. Other than that, she's absolutely amazing. So it's she, I think, would be great as to be owned by, personally by a single rider. But not a horse like that. Any horse that's got finicky stuff like that should not be used for a ranch that's regularly every day, almost every day, giving between 1 and 4 horseback rides out on a beach, 90 minutes out from anything. Or, well, I guess 45 minutes out, because it's 45 minutes out and then 45 minutes back. 45 minutes out in the middle of nowhere, out on a beach. If someone were to kick her at the wrong time in the wrong place, now we've got a seriously injured person far out on a beach, 45 minutes out from the barn and from the ranch and all that. And if they went over the water crossing, it's on a little island that there's no buildings there. There's nothing. It's a little marsh island. So have fun retrieving that person or getting them immediate medical assistance, because they just didn't listen or just forgot or whatever and accidentally kicked Shania in her side and she went cray-cray. Because that's her one finicky thing. A business like that should probably, if we're really taking seriously the thing, what could go wrong, like how badly you could damage a person in their whole life and other people by extension, and or also mess up a horse, then the kinds of horses that should be working in that place are horses that don't have any issues. There were plenty. Most of them didn't have any issues. There were no like issues that was like would result in a rider getting seriously hurt. Like nothing where it's like if you kick them the wrong way or you do something around them the wrong way, they'll flip out. Any horse like that should not be used in a job like that. All right? That doesn't mean they're a bad horse, but they shouldn't be used in a job like that. They just shouldn't be. If you get right down to it. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling and ranting. It's just ridiculous. And then like I saw them retire 3 horses while I was there, and they really do just kind of like push them off on whoever they can. Please take these horses, take them. And the 2 of them, I don't know. I don't really know. I think the one wound up in a good spot with good people. But 2 of them, I don't know, honestly. I got a feeling like, I don't know, like those horses might have gone someplace that probably wasn't great for them. I'm not sure, to be honest. All I know is they were really trying to like push these horses off on people, and it's just, it's not the best situation. I thought it would be. My experience with taking riding lessons at barns with horses, and when I was like a teen, I would like volunteer at these places and help take care of horses for like lessons and stuff, and help take care. I would also help give lessons to kids. I'd help places where they would give horseback riding sessions to kids with development issues, because it helps things like build up their core muscles. And those were just smaller, they weren't enterprises. They weren't really these big ranches. It's not a big ranch, but they weren't trying like really hard to make a ton of money off of the horses. Or if the way they made money off the horses is they would house other people's horses. They would basically charge rent to someone who owned a horse that didn't have a place to keep their horse. But this way of making money off horses, I mean, it's tricky, and it can lead to animal abuse and animal neglect if it's not done right, and it's not done by somebody with a conscience and who puts the living experience of living creatures before their own pocketbook. It's really... And David Royal Sainting is not the kind of person who should be running that kind of business, because he's already made it clear to me, he clearly values his money above the living experience of the animals he's responsible for. So, yeah. That's really what I thought I was going to be walking into when I accepted this position. Was going to be a barn that was owned by maybe an older woman. That's what it sounded like, the description being given to me when I was going back and forth in emails. An older woman who couldn't really do everything to keep up the barn too much anymore. She had maybe 4 or 5 horses or something, and she maybe gave some private lessons to some of the local kids and stuff, and took them out on trail rides and stuff that she might need help with, and might mostly just need help with taking care of the horses in the barn, and maybe giving the odd ride and riding lesson or something. And also she made it clear that she needs help with devices, electric devices. This was, I guess, Laura Halley that I was going back and forth talking to. So that's what it seemed like it would be to me. It would be like kind of the personal assistant barn hand to an older woman who had trouble with like newfangled electric devices, and was getting a bit too old to be keeping up stuff in the barn, and just wanted to focus on like giving rides and lessons to some of her personal, riding students, and just needed like a limber body to help out in exchange for a place to park up my rig and for a small salary. So that's what I thought I was walking into. It turned out to be very different. And at first I thought different, even though different, still looks pretty good. And just, again, over the course of the 3 months I was there, things were looking just slowly adding up and adding up and adding up to this place might actually totally suck. It's gorgeous. The scenery is beautiful. That's another thought that kept popping up in my mind. Popping up, like out of the nethers of my guts, was like, it's a beautiful trap. It's like a beautiful scenery, beautiful setting, but it's like something's not right under the surface. It's window dressing. So, yeah, I don't know what else to tell you guys for this one. Oh my gosh, Perseus is giving one of the kittens a bath. He is such a good boy. He's a good buddy. I'm still trying to figure out how to get him to a vet because his eye's still weeping really bad and it's just squinty. So, all right, I'm going to go.